Okay, I've tested a few all-in-one camera security systems on this channel already, but I have actually spent more time on this system than I have any of my previous systems. And spoiler alert, it's not because it's amazing. What's up YouTube, Jason here with Byte My Bits, and in today's video we are checking out an all-in-one security camera solution offered by Zosi, Z-O-S-I, Zosi, it's Zosi. However you say the name, they do offer this 4-camera solution. Actually, if you take a look at their Amazon page, they have many different camera solutions available online to pick from. A lot of them CCTV cameras, but the one that I checked out specifically today was a bundle of 4 IP cameras. But before I jump into that review, let me cover some specs while I show you some of the B-roll. This is the Zosi 1080p Power over Ethernet 4-channel NVR outdoor security system with 2 megapixel night view bullet cameras. This NVR package does come with 4 1080p outdoor cameras made out of metal. Of course, they have built-in night vision and do require either a power over Ethernet switch to hook up to your normal network, or you can plug it into the back of the NVR itself and that will power the camera. For the NVR, it does display in 1080p, has an HDMI output. You can connect to it with a web browser or use a QR code for remote access. It is compatible with the Remote View iPhone, iPad, or Android app. It is limited to 4 channels, so it is not expandable, at least from what I can tell. And the one that I have today did not come with a hard drive, but you do have an option to buy one with a 1 terabyte hard drive that only costs $30 more. So the specs on that are pretty simple. This is a 1080p system and you only get 4 cameras, all power over Ethernet cameras, which is actually why I decided to check this camera system out. I do like and really only want to review IP cameras moving forward. The whole CCTV thing to me is just old technology and I don't really have any use for it, but I was still pretty let down by this system. So, I mean, let's start with the NVR. First of all, the NVR, this thing is like 95% box. And you find that a lot with NVRs, DVRs these days. I mean, it's just like a little board here and then the rest of it's pretty empty, but this one is very empty. But that's not necessarily a negative. I mean, if they have efficient hardware, good hardware, and it's all packed in a small space, hey, more power to them. One of the main reasons why I bring this up with this NVR is that it is just sluggish. I mean, the whole experience is slow. Moving from screen to screen, going through settings, not that big of a deal, but anything that requires loading video or trying to play back video or anything really, everything feels sluggish. And this is only a 4-camera system. So for 4 cameras running at 1080p, I mean, it's like there's a Raspberry Pi in there powering that thing. Now, as for the storage, I actually tried 2 different hard drives, and I'll explain why here in a little bit, but the first drive that I used was a 500 gigabyte Western Digital Blue 2.5-inch drive. Now, this was actually a new drive that I took out of a laptop for a friend so I could replace it with an SSD for better reliability and obviously speed. So that drive itself hadn't been used at all, so I figured it was probably the newest drive I had to put into the system. And then when I get into some reasons later, I end up swapping it out to a 1 terabyte Western Digital Purple full-size 3.5-inch drive. But as I mentioned before, if you want to order the system without a drive, that's fine, but you can pay that extra $30 and get a 1 terabyte drive, straight from the factory. And that's actually a pretty decent deal, I guess, $30 for a hard drive, assuming it's a good hard drive just to get everything, all set up all at once. As for the cameras, like I said, they can hook up to your network or they can hook up to the NVR directly. The NVR will power them via power over Ethernet, but I do have a Cisco power over Ethernet switch, so I was able to hook it up to my network. It's kind of a unique situation with these cameras because, this company, they basically hard code these cameras to run on a very specific subnet. So like my subnet, my DHCP lease server automatically goes to 192.168.2 and then whatever. But these cameras don't pull DHCP. They have their own IPs pre-programmed into them. Even when I tried to change that IP, it would change it back to the 138 subnet. So this one is still able to grab and find those predefined, IP addresses that it already knows it should be looking for. But when I was trying to go the extra mile here and see if I could hook up the cameras to Blue Iris via either OnV support or just an RTSP stream, I wasn't able to connect to them because they're on a whole different subnet. And I'll save the long story and give you the short version. I was able to connect my server OS to both subnets, and I was able to get this hooked up to Blue Iris directly, which was actually really good for my testing because this thing kind of sucks. I mean, I'm just gonna say it right here. This thing leaves much to be desired. And forewarning here, they say that this is not supposed to be hooked up to anything else. I mean, they want it directly to the NVR, which is why they try to lock it down. They force it on its own IP address to basically make it to where you can't use it on anything else. That didn't stop me, but still, they do try to lock this thing down. But going back to the NVR system and going back to the hard drive setup, pretty much when I was doing my recordings and I was trying to see how the quality looked and then export that and then use that as demonstrations, I ran into a few different things that really made me rely on Blue Iris to give you, the best footage possible. So let's start off with the recording. I noticed when I was recording that the video footage would run slow and then it would skip around, like it was having a hard time writing all that data to the drive or something, like it wasn't fast enough. Because when I went back to play it back, which by the way, it's kind of laggy and I don't know, frustrating in its own, but when I went to play it back, it was just slow. It jumped around. It didn't actually capture everything. So there's a bunch of skip frames. And then when I finally figured out how to export it, and that's a whole nother ordeal. I mean, I put 2 different USB drives in it, could not figure out how to export to a USB drive. I ended up finally having to use Internet Explorer and the nice, unsigned certificate random application installed just to get it to work. And I exported it directly to my desktop, probably have a virus now, but I did manage to get that to work. Funny story, the exported video that you get directly from the device itself is a super low resolution. So I'll give an example. This video is encoded in 4K. So if I put a screenshot of one of my test videos that I recorded through Blue Iris, this is in 1080p. Blue Iris is recording direct to disk without any re-encoding. So this is the full resolution, full quality that it was able to capture. And this overlay is the resolution of the file. So it's smaller for some reason. It's not full 1080 and there's no options to change that in the export phase. But anyways, let's back up. This thing's easy to get on a tangent with. So I was using the Western Digital Blue. Everything was slow. It was slow to load. So that's why I ended up switching it out to a Western Digital Purple drive. I have one of those. It is kind of an old drive, which is why I used the Western Digital Blue drive first, but it's still a good drive. Slap that sucker in here, full 3.5 inch, hoping maybe I was running into some issues with the hard drive and still had the same issue. So definitely not a hard drive issue. I guess it's an NVR issue. So after battling through, the slow system itself, working with the backup or the exporting of the video footage, giving up entirely on the internal storage of this device and just solely relying on my Blue Iris server to do all of the recording for me, I was finally able to give you some examples of what I hoped maybe these cameras would, bring it in for the home team. Say, hey, maybe these cameras are really good. This system is just not good, but you still get 4 IP channels. So maybe, I don't know. I'm really kind of stretching here to make this thing work. But I hooked this thing up in the daytime and this is an example. Yeah, it's a cloudy day, but still plenty of light. And I've used the term decent before to describe a camera that, it for all respects looks decent, but is not fantastic. And I don't even think that I can describe this camera as a decent quality. It's technically usable and you can technically see what's going on and it definitely works. It's very lacking in a lot of areas. Colors are washed out, clarity is just down. I mean, I usually have to blur out the street name across the street, but with this one, I blurred it out to just do it, just to play it safe, but I don't even think I had to do it. Basically, this camera was not clear enough to capture my street sign across the street, which normally with other cameras, in fact, just about every other camera that I've messed with has been able to clearly distinguish what the street name was across the street. So I switched it over to nighttime performance, and it's kind of the same thing. A lot of nighttime performance are all the same. It's really hard to be judgmental on some of them, but this is close to decent, but it's nighttime vision, and it's just, I don't know. I'm not impressed. You guys can see it. I personally would not want to rely on this for any kind of security reasons. I feel like I can barely make out my face. It's kind of overblown by the infrared illumination. Kind of just blows my face out, and I don't know. I just, overall, you can see what it is, but overall, I'm not impressed. So the NVR is slow. It has a horrible recording and playback system built into it. I cannot figure out how to export, and due to the nature of the device, I'm not saying it's impossible to export, but I'm saying that I am not willing to put in the time to troubleshoot it to figure out how to export. If I tried 2 different USB drives from 2 different brands that run in 2 different speeds and I still can't get the thing to export, then it doesn't work for me, and I'm not going to throw any more time into it. But the internal playback, it skips around, and that can be detrimental if you're trying to catch somebody doing something and you need that footage. And if you need to export that footage through the system, it's going to be a lower resolution anyways. So you're kind of, I don't know, this is just not a good NVR system at all. And even going to the cameras, I was thinking, hey, if anything, I can, throw this thing in the trash and I'll have 4 IP cameras that I could hook up to Blue Iris if I wanted to. Not that I need them, but hey, if I wanted to, I could. But I don't see myself doing that. I think these are going to go in a box, put on a shelf, save them for maybe some other thing in the future. I don't know. I just, I'm not impressed with the quality enough to even use it, even as a free device. I'm just not impressed with the quality at all. Camera quality is only 1080p. It's not very sharp. Colors are kind of washed. The NVR system kind of sucks. It's slow. Internal playback is just horrible. You can't export directly from the device without apparently doing a rain dance and chanting to it. And the only solid thing that I can say is that adding cameras is easy. You plug this into either your switch or you plug it in directly to the NVR. It works just as well either way, just as fast either way. It is easy to search for the cameras because it knows what to look for. You can add them easily. It has default username and passwords. So all of that is easy, but with that ease comes vulnerability. So let's go to these cameras. Like I said, they try to lock down these cameras and everything, but if you were to actually connect to these cameras using Internet Explorer, or they even gave me a tool to download, which doesn't matter, but if you were to manually go in there and maybe make some changes, you might be able to change the password on those cameras, but by default, the username and password is admin. And when you're in there, there's no option to secure your system, right? There's no option to lock this thing down. You have to take the initiative and log in through Internet Explorer and then change your username and password. And to be honest, I haven't done that. So it's very possible this might revert back to the default. And I'll tell you why. Because there is absolutely no way to reset this to default settings, which is why I was scared to change the password, because I'm like, I want to get to my testing. I want to make sure this thing works. And if something gets screwed up, there's no way to reset this. There's no reset button. There's no factory button. This is it. This is all you get. So if you mess something up or you forget your password, you can't reset it to default settings to go back to admin. But if you hook everything up to your network and you get everything installed and up and running, then your default username and password is admin. So what does that mean? That means you have 4 internet connected cameras on your system that have a default username and password that you are either too scared to change or can't change or just didn't even know that you should have changed. To me, that is a huge security issue, and I don't like that either. So this thing is just misfiring on all cylinders, and I kind of feel bad because I hate giving these kind of reviews for products like this, but I've thoroughly tested every single angle that I can possibly think of on this device, and I really can't come up with one selling point at all. If for whatever reason you guys want to learn more about this device, I will link to it in the description down below. As always, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you want more of this content, and have yourself a good day.